All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to talk about Justin Gaethje, because Justin Gaethje's been getting into a lot of fights this week. But there's something else that I want to talk about, which was a huge piece of data that came out last week that kind of got glossed over because there was so much stuff going on this past week with, post UFC 268, and Gaethje was literally like getting in actual like arguments with basically everyone in the lightweight division. And so when the specific story I'm talking about came out and there was a little piece of data in the middle of it, it was like everyone just kind of glossed right over it. And I was like, wait, what? And I took that, I went and ran it through a couple of my guys who are, managers and agents and stuff. I was like, is this right? And they were like, must be. It's amazing. And we're going to talk about exactly what that is. And then I'm going to talk about all of his beefs and all that. But before I do that, I just want to say this. Gaethje, if you see this video, me and you have a date with Destiny on the golf course, my friend. I saw your countdown, and me and you are going to play golf. And we're going to bet, and I'm going to beat you. And then I'm going to talk about it on the channel a lot. So be prepared for that, and there's no beating me up afterwards. Those are the rules. The rules are I'll probably win, and you are not allowed to beat me up afterwards. Those are the rules. So anyway, I'm about to spend the rest of this video talking, about how you have the world by the balls. So maybe that'll entice you to want to play. So anyway, if you guys like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Let me tell you this. Okay, so actually let me start here. So the thing that I was talking about was in the article that they talked about Justin's interview with MMA Fighting, I think. He was talking about how he thought that the ref made a bad call that almost cost him the fight. Details, totally unimportant. It didn't get that much attention because he did win the fight. It's just one of those things like when a fighter says, ref made a mistake, could have cost me the fight, but the guy won. That's just not like the kind of thing that a bunch of people pay attention to. If he would have lost the fight and he said, I would have won if, that's the kind of thing that everybody focuses on and do a million videos on it. But the part that was in that article that everybody just glossed over was he's like, you almost cost me $1 million. And I was like, $1 million? It's like, wait, Gaethje's on $1 million win bonus deal? That's bananas, dude. I mean, as far as I know, that's got to be one of the biggest deals ever for a non-title holder. I mean, maybe Nate Diaz is on something that high, Masvidal for sure, but that's basically on. It sounds like he's on a set deal. $1 million win bonus is enormous for a non-title fight. Enormous. The standard challenger, contract is not even close to that big, right? So Gaethje has a huge deal. Well-deserved, by the way. I mean, if you were going to list off, the top 10 fighters that would drive you to buy any pay-per-view that they were on, is there any person in the world that Gaethje's not on that list? Because if he's not, that just means they're a very casual fan, which means they would not be watching my channel. So yeah, I mean, obviously well-deserved. The guy is the most exciting fighter in the UFC probably, right? I mean, in all honesty, like I was actually thinking about that earlier. I was like, so if someone was like, who's the guy that's the most exciting fighter that for 1,000% sure is gonna be in a war? There's never been a boring fight ever, and there's no question it's Gaethje. Like there are no chinks in his armor, like none, as it relates to his fights being exciting. Even in the fights that he lost, they're like the best fights of the Eddie Alvarez and the Dustin Poirier fights. Insanely amazing fights. The Khabib fight, awesome fight. Wars. He just makes it impossible. He makes it actually impossible for you to not engage with him. Like you can't make it boring. It's not possible because you can't take him down. The only way you'd be able to make it boring is if you took him down and just laid on top of him, but you can't take him down. So he's not going to let you stand around on your feet and pick your shots. He's going to make you work. So anyway, good for him. He deserves it. Now, the thing I was going to just sideline on relating to that is, when I thought about that, I just this morning was looking up Kamaru Usman's 2021 lineup. So he fought Gilbert Burns in February, George Masvidal in April, Colby Covington in November. And this is also coming off of fighting George Masvidal in July of 2020, the one that got 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. Do you have any idea how much money Kamaru Usman has probably made in the last year and a half? A lot, dude. A lot of money. A lot of money, dude. Millions of dollars every time that he fights. And he's fought 4 times, and a couple of those were the Masvidal fights with him. So many buys, and the Colby Covington one was so many buys. He's made so much money, dude. So much money. So good for them. And then you got Gaethje made a bunch of dough when he fought Khabib, and then he's now making a million, it sounds like. So those guys are doing good up there, man. And then, again, it's obviously why Trevor Wittman can just take on 3 fighters. And, I seriously, I can't even, I try to think about that setup in terms of fighting against those guys, Like how much better people would be if they had one-on-one coaching all the time. Like a lot of these guys are in classes like you, Like just think about how much better you get in one-on-ones versus in your class. I mean, of course you develop in class, then you teach a technique, then you're rolling with someone, and then you catch them in something. You're like, wait. Go back to that position. You can kind of start figuring things out for yourself, and then maybe your professor comes over and does. But like if in a one-on-one, it's a whole different deal, and that's what they've got all the time. Like all the time they have that with Trevor Wittman on their shoulder. Like no wonder they're so fucking good. You know what I mean? The other thing I was thinking about is I wonder if Trevor Wittman would take on like a middle pack UFC fighter. Like most MMA gyms, if an established UFC fighter is like, hey man, I'm looking for a new gym, and he's not like some asshole that has a history of whatever. I mean, most MMA gyms will take him on. I wonder if Trevor would. Like I just because of the setup that he has now. Like if somebody, I'm not talking about like a really hot up and comer. I'm talking just like a regular, maybe ranked number 10 and is, 6-3 in the UFC. I wonder if Trevor would take them on. I'd be very curious. If I had him on the show, or, I mean, I don't really have people on the show. I do that intentionally, but if I just had a conversation with him, I would ask that. I'd be very, very curious what his answer to that would be. But yeah, so, and then, Rose making millions of dollars now too, every time. I mean, I wonder what her deal was for the Wei Li fight, but I mean, she certainly made a lot of dough for this one. Yeah, so that's that. Now, let's talk about these beasts that everybody's getting into here, because this is actually really interesting. I also always marvel at how people in the industry, like actual professional MMA journalists, this is their stone main gig, right? Like this is their stone, this is their job. And I'll read some of their takes sometimes. I'm like, the fuck, like, this is nonsense, dude. Like, this is a nonsense take, okay? And I apologize. I just realized that I just switched phones. I'm not logged into Twitter, so I'm not going to be able to call out the guy directly who I'm talking about specifically this time. But if you want to check what I'm talking about, you can go to Twitter, go to my Twitter, and look at my response to the guy who was talking about Khabib chirping at other fighters, okay? Because he is one of the UFC main analysts. His take is nonsense, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. So basically, Justin Gaethje obviously is calling for a title shot. He got pissed at DC. He said that DC was being biased. Is it true that DC got pulled from cage side commentating? Is that true? Because he's being too biased? Or maybe they're just saying that because of Holloway, because him and Holloway are like boys. I don't know. I don't know. But I don't think the DC is biased. Let me actually say that right now. I don't think the DC is super biased. I actually don't. I will say, in the case that Gaethje's making, you could certainly make a case that Gaethje's got a legit beef, I guess. Like, because what Gaethje's talking about, I'm talking in circles here, but what Gaethje is talking about is that when DC went in after the Machachev fight and he put a microphone in Islam's face, he basically set him up to demand a title shot, right? Like it was like, so, yada, 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 title shot. And he didn't think that he did the same thing for Gaethje. Gaethje thinks he's in line, and the Machachev team is positioning Islam for the next title shot, okay? So this is simple stuff, right? Gaethje is doing what a good fighter does, a professional who knows how to work the business, okay? Like, for some reason, people who watch this sport, they watch guys like Conor, right? And they're like, man, this guy really knows how to work the business, And he does, of course, he absolutely does, knows exactly how to work the business. But then, like, guys who walk around a little bit more sullen, who aren't playing the charisma game, who aren't doing the, like, the flashy outfits and all that stuff, like, they act like those guys are just tripping over their dick and stumbling into good fight promotion. Like, no one ever gave Khabib credit for how amazing a promoter he was. Khabib was amazing at the fight game. Incredible. One of the best ever. No one ever gave him any credit because he played it so stone. But dude, he was I want your chicken, Russia, 100 million, Ira. Like, you think he's doing that because he knows how the fight game works. He knows how to talk his way into fights. Okay? That's part of the deal. I cannot say this enough times. That is part of the deal. Knowing who's where, knowing who you're competing with for what's next, calling them out directly, making the beef public, making your case public. Okay, so just like we talked about in the last video, I love this new relationship that we all have. Like, I've basically just said, okay, I just now realize my fans are hardcore, or viewers are hardcores, so I can talk to them like hardcores. We could just talk that way. And so we can take things for granted. Like, we know what the UFC's driving metric is, which is pay-per-view buys, obviously. Okay? And so what does that mean? It ultimately means that the fans are going to decide who fights who. Okay? Like, the fans decide who fights who. You could the UFC is really screwing this guy over. He's really getting hosed. Really? Is he? Because I can tell you right now, every single time when this happens, you can go back and go, well, who did everyone vote for? You're like, what do you mean? There's no voting system. Fuck you, there's no voting system. Take a look at their Twitter. How many times did his messages get retweeted? How many times did people pick him in the UFC game? Right? That's you voting, dude. Every time you pick a player in the UFC game, you're voting for that guy to get a title shot. Okay? No, 100%. Like, there's just absolutely no question that that's accurate. Okay? That specific instant, because they've actually talked about that. Okay? And so if you sit back and you don't demand title shots, you don't directly call people out. Now, Leon Edwards is doing a much better job of this now, at least. But I bet you people aren't picking him on the UFC game, and that's why he's having to work so hard. So Gaethje going out and, and calling out DC, calling out Khabib, calling out Islam, calling everybody out, that's good fight promotion. That is step by step how an elite top of the game fighter behaves when he's trying to drive towards big fights. That's just what you do, And Gaethje has he convinces me, okay? Like, most of these guys call people out, and I'm like, oh wow, they're doing good fight game. But like Gaethje convinces me he really genuinely hates these guys. Like, I think Gaethje legit hates these guys, which either means he really hates these guys, and I'm usually pretty fucking good at reading these things, or he's an exceptional actor. I tend to lean towards the previous. Like, I think it's easy for him to look at someone who's not on his team and be like, I want to crush that guy's face. He stands in my way. Fuck him. But anyway, so, Gaethje's calling for a title shot. He called DC bias. Khabib came out, and Khabib was like, how would you get a title shot when you were unconscious in October, right? So almost exactly a year ago, Gaethje got a title shot, and he ended up unconscious, is what Khabib said, right? And that was the beginning of this thing. So on Twitter, the thing I originally alluded to, where this UFC commentator, he's like, I don't like Khabib, retired Khabib, chirping at active lightweights. I don't like, that's what he said. I don't like him chirping at active lightweights while he's retired. And I'm like, really, dude? That's your take on this? Like, that's your take? That Khabib's chirping at other lightweights? Like, do you actually follow this sport, or do you just like someone that they put in the chair and like you do research on the fighters that are fighting that night? Okay, like, this is not rocket science, bro. Okay, like, Khabib's, when he's doing that right there, he's not doing that as the retired fighter that's talking trash about the active fighters. He's Islam Makhachev's fucking coach and manager. Obviously, he's trying to get Islam Makhachev to fight. Like, this is not like the kind of thing where you have to think 8 layers deep to predict that they're going to pull Masvidal from UFC 269. Like, I can't expect everyone to be able to figure that out. But this is like 1 + 1 = 2. Like, I couldn't understand. Like, anyone who was saying that, like, why is Khabib talking shit? He's retired. I'm like, dude, is he anything other than retired? Like, yeah, I know he was the champion. Now he's retired. Like, can you think of anything else that might play into why he's behaving this way? Like, what the fuck? It's fucking ridiculous. It's so fucking obvious. Obviously, he's doing it on behalf of Islam Machachev, which demonstrates the missing piece for Islam Machachev, right? Because Khabib is excellent at this. Khabib is excellent at this. Like, what Khabib did on purpose. Then Khabib got into an argument with Eddie Alvarez. And Eddie Alvarez defended Gaethje's position and basically said, so Khabib said Islam Machachev hasn't lost. He's like, 9 straight fights. And Gaethje's 6-3 during that same period. And so that's, Khabib's case. Islam is 9-0 in his last 9, and Gaethje is 6-3, and he was unconscious in October. And Alvarez is like, dude, when he lost to you, dude. That was great response. Alvarez like, he lost to you, dude. That's not like a regular opponent. And I totally agree. Exactly what I said about why you pulled Masvidal off 269. Exactly the exact same thing. The reason why the Gaethje loss to Khabib doesn't matter is the same reason why you pull Masvidal off 269. Because they both, like Colby and Masvidal, they lost to Usman. Everybody's lost to Usman. That doesn't diminish their stock. If Usman's gone, then they're the two biggest stars. They're not washed. And Gaethje losing to fucking Khabib that's, what do you think would happen if Machachev fought him that day? You think Machachev would have beat him? I doubt it, And the point that Alvarez made was, yeah, he's 6-3, and all of his losses were to champions or former champions. He's like, Islam Machachev has taken no risks. Now, I will say this: that's not Islam's fault. That is not Islam's fault at all. People didn't want to fight him because he was low in the ranks. That's why UFC had to jump him up to 5. Like, they're like, oh, it beat Drew Dober or whatever. Now he's the 5th ranked guy. It's because people wouldn't take the fight unless they jumped him up there. They had to do that, or else he wouldn't be able to fight. Then he fights Dan Hooker, and Kimura. He did finish him with Kimura, right? Yeah, Kimura, very, very quickly. But Alvarez is a wrestler. Gaethje's a wrestler. Anybody who's a high level grappler is going to go, you out grapple Dan Hooker. Come on. Dan Hooker is he's good at not getting taken down. For the most part, but he's a striker. Once Islam Machachev gets him to the ground, he should be able to finish him relatively quickly, which he did. But he hasn't fought any of the top guys, and Gaethje only lost to the top guys. So that's a compelling argument, That's a very compelling argument. So I don't really, I don't know. The thing about DC being biased, I think it's bullshit, personally. I think people are just being overly kind of sensitive to what he does when, what you're fighting for right now is something that everyone wants more than any other thing in the world. They want to be the undisputed champion, right? And so, like, if someone appears to be standing in the way of you getting the opportunity to do that, they're going to start looking like an enemy pretty fucking quick, And like DC asked Islam a question that sounds like a setup, and DC's on Islam's team. It's easy to be like, what the fuck? Why is he asking that? He didn't ask me that shit. Like, I just fought the guy who, should, for all intents and purposes, probably should have been the champion. They could have, in all honesty, I watched that Chandler and Oliveira fight. They could have stopped that fight in the first round. Might have been a slightly early stoppage if they would have jumped in when Charles was on the ground. But it could have easily happened. And so Gaethje, for all intents and purposes, could have already been the champion right now. He just beat Michael Chandler. But yeah, it's really interesting when you have a guy like Khabib retire, and especially given that Dustin kind of went kind of veered off and then went and fought Conor. Oh, that's a whole other thing I need to talk about is the Gaethje and Dustin stuff. It's just weird, like when the belt's up in the air and it takes a while before you really establish who the champion is. Like at 135, we kind of now officially, it's like, okay, Peter Yan is the real. Obviously, he's the interim, right? But Peter Yan is the guy, right? Like Peter Yan is the guy at 135. That took a while, dude. That took a while from when Triple C stepped away for you to really feel like, okay, this is the guy, dude. Like this is definitely the guy. And it's going to take a while for that to shake out at 155. These guys don't fight that many times every year. It'll take 2 years, before you really, assuming that someone emerges as the guy. But anyway, so let's talk about this, the Dustin Poirier thing, because I'm going to hypothetically throw myself in the middle of this, like maybe I had something to do with this, but probably not. But I'm just going to say that it's possible, because here's what Gaethje said. He said that after him and like if Dustin, assuming Dustin won, right? He's saying if Dustin beats Charles, then he thinks that he'll just walk away. He thinks he won't fight him, right? Like he thinks that Dustin would win the belt and then walk, okay? And he said that it's because after their first fight, you know, Justin was out taking pictures. He was out having a good time. He's like, there's no way that Dustin Poirier was having a good time that night. I will agree with that. Like, not that Dustin took an equal amount of head trauma, but he was not walking anywhere on that leg, dude. Like, Dustin Poirier was in a wheelchair or on crutches after that fight. I'm not going to say 100%, but if he was walking, let's just say this. If he was walking, he was hobbling his fucking ass around, dude. Like he took, and I'm saying this as a compliment to Dustin Poirier, by the way. Like he took an amount of punishment to that leg that, you know, like what I talk about on this channel all the time about like, you know, how I view the sport. It's like, what are you made of? Like why I love the sport is like you really get to find out how deep a guy can dig or what a guy can take, how. Like, why do you respect the Navy SEALs so much? You know, like, why do Navy SEALs, and you know what, I'm getting really close to being able to announce the project that I'm doing with the SEALs. As a matter of fact, I could probably do it now, but I'm not going to because I should probably talk to them, at least confirm before I say it publicly on the channel, but that's coming real soon. And I think when you hear which SEALs I'm doing it with, you're going to be like, what the fuck? Because they are some big fucking names. But anyway, why does everyone, you know, have so much respect for the Navy SEALs, right? It's because they've demonstrated an ability to, you know, operate under pressure, to withstand incredible punishment, you know? Like, I think that everyone knowing about BUD/S, you know, like the BUD/S training and Hell Week and all that stuff, everyone knowing about that, I think is a real big part of the allure of the Navy SEALs versus the other branches of Special Forces. Because at least as far as I mean, I don't know anything in detail about what kind of gauntlet that these guys run through to become a Ranger or Green Beret or any of these, you know, like recon guys. Like I don't know any of that stuff, but I do know about BUD/S, you know, and I know that they have like an 89% fail rate, you know, and you just think about that, right? Like think about, first of all, how you even get to be in the position to try. You have to be the top of the Navy. And then only 11% of guys who start BUD/S make it. 11%, dude. Like think about how fine-tuned that punishment needs to be for them to know to go as hard as they can go, like where they know they're going to weed out 90% of people who have set their mind they will not quit no matter what, and you have to get 90% of them to quit. And so the guys that, you know, you meet them and they're like, oh, so, you know, what do you do? You're like, oh, I'm a retired Navy SEAL. You're like, oh shit, you know, like, I mean, obviously you meet anyone who served and you're like, oh, nice, man, you know, thank you for your service, etc. But the SEAL thing, that's what it's, at least for me, that's what it's about, because you're like, damn, like, no matter how friendly this dude is, no matter whatever, like you know that this is a guy that can take incredible punishment and withstand it and continue to move forward, and not just move forward, but, you know, like score well on these like tests they're doing after no sleep for 7 days. I mean, anyway, you understand the point I'm making, right? And so Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are both guys that you're like, without any shred of doubt, none, fucking none, okay? You throw all the guys in the UFC into BUD/S training, Gaethje's making it. Fucking Poirier is for sure making it. Those guys are making it through for sure, right? They're making it through for sure. And, you know, and that fight right there is one of those perfect examples where Dustin Poirier literally could not even fucking walk, dude. Like, he couldn't even stand on that leg, and he figured out a way to win because he doesn't have a breaking point. Gaethje, the only reason he lost is because his body and brain gave out. Like his body didn't give, or like his will to fight didn't give out. He just got punched so many times that all of a sudden he's just like, oh, my body's not doing what I'm telling it to do, you know? So, yeah, Kamaru Usman would make it for sure. Colby would make it for 100% sure. For 100% sure. Masvidal would make it, I bet, too. I bet a lot of these guys would actually make it. But nonetheless, it's irrelevant. I mean, I don't know. I've never fucking done it. I've seen the documentaries. But I just always think about that fucking 11%. That when I found out the pass rate was 11%, I couldn't fucking believe that. I thought it was higher than that. I had no idea they failed 90% of people. But, or they quit. Like, they quit. That's another video. I can tell you guys some cool stories that these guys have told me about going through that process and like, well, I'll tell you one now, actually, because if you've made it this far. So these guys told me about a guy. I can't even remember which one of them told me this, but in his class, he had this guy. He's like, this motherfucker looked like Dolph Lundgren. Like he looked like he had been built in a factory to be a Navy SEAL, right? And he was scoring super well on all the tests. Like he's crushing it, like in running, like surf torture, all that stuff, killing it. And they got to the pool, and they drowned them, like they fucking drowned them. Like they throw them in the pool, they bind their hands and legs, and they fucking drown them in the pool, and then they have to revive people. It's fucking insane. And the guy fucking lost it in the pool, and he quit. Right? You have to go ring the bell, and he said this guy rang the bell, and he said 30 guys followed that guy out. 30. Like people were so on the edge. Like that's the environment that you're in. People are so on the edge that when that guy quit, 30 dudes had been like, just at that point were like, okay, if fucking Dolph Lundgren can't make it, I'm done, dude. And they all rang out. 30 followed this one guy because it's like, fuck, if he can't make it, there's no way I'm gonna be able to finish this shit. I don't know, like the psychology of that entire process is crazy. I told them, I was like, you know how I would get through that is I would have to like put myself in a position where in my mind, I'm like, if I quit, then something happens to like one of my brothers or like someone in my family, like, and they're like, you already lost. And I was like, how's that? They're all, you can't have, if I quit, that's not like, you're already done. Like that's, it cannot ever even enter your mind or you'll quit. Like it can't even be, it can't be in your head at all. And I was like, that's bananas, man. Bananas. They're all super smart, very fucking cool. Anyway, whatever, I'm off the deep end here. But Gaethje, I want it in golf, dude. Let's fucking do this. Now, if you guys like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Peace.